Hey guys, Joe East here again. I look like Moses. According to one of my colleagues, he says, "Man, you look like Moses." I'm like, okay, whatever, whatever works. So, yeah, I updated the wardrobe a little bit. Actually, got a Thor's hammer sort of necklace going on here. I saw one guy that was doing some spiritual videos, and I was like, you know what? I kind of like that. Let me grab some Thor's hammer stuff. Let's awaken the ancestral gods. All right. So this is a video where I do training all the time. I don't only, make a lot of money, when I can. I also train constantly. So right now I'm training on one of Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi's modules on, I think it's called the Mastermind Blueprint or something like that. Anyway, so I'm going to be riffing on some topics here. Again, I'm just going to be reading off a subject line and then riff on it and move on to the next subject. Again, this is my training, so let's have fun here. And all these topics are related to what I'm interested in. And those of you who are interested in this channel, you might find this interesting. Okay, riff topic. Let me make sure I got the camera in a side little screen here so I can make sure I don't get off camera. And now I can read my riff topics like this. Okay. All right. Pareto Principle. What is the Pareto Principle? What do you have to know about the Pareto Principle if you're not a technical person? If you're a technical person, you already know the Pareto Principle. But you might not know how to apply it and how important the Pareto Principle is if you are a technical person. Sometimes technical people have no idea of the why. They only know the what. So I'm going to give you the why. The Pareto Principle is stripped down to its core essence is the maximum outputs for the most minimum inputs, more or less. So what is the maximum output I can get for a minimum input or for a very low input? And what are the points in the system where I have the smallest effort with the extremely greatest impact? And what does that look like? That's the Pareto Principle. It's the principle of amplification is another way to say it. So an amplifier is, let's say I'm speaking into a microphone and I crank up the volume from 0 to 10. And I can be speaking with the same amount of power out of my voice, but I can project and amplify my voice to a big stadium if I have enough power in the amplifier. So the Pareto Principle is how can you maximize your amplification of your outputs. This is money, power, technology, energy, simplification, marketing, sales, everything. It goes against the average, the bell curve. Most people, when they're introduced to statistics, the Holy Grail is the bell curve. I say bullshit. The Holy Grail is Pareto. You reorganize all your data to inputs, outputs, and as you find your Pareto curves, that's the most important thing because 20% of your inputs will give approximately 80% of your outputs. 80% of the wealth in any country is owned by 20% of the population. It's a law of nature pretty much. And if you want to dig deep into the Pareto Principle on the mathematical and sometimes sales and marketing philosophical level, get Perry Marshall's books. He's really good on this stuff. The next riff topic is the story behind the story behind the story. If you watch some of my previous videos, you know that you hear a story in the news or from somebody, you always want to get the story behind the story. And then there's multiple layers because people, when they're speaking, tend to not understand their own subconscious mind and their drives and their ambitions and goals. Unless they're deep meditators and they're kind of connecting the heart to the conscious mind. And typically if you're into meditation, you got a better connection there. It can never be, I don't think it could probably ever be perfect. for normal folks, unless you meditate for like all day or something, you're a monk. But for the most part, you can connect better your conscious mind to your motivations to your subconscious. And so the story behind the story behind the story is the why. If you're a technical person, you probably heard of the 5 whys process, where you're like, okay, that exploded. Why? There was a fire. Why? There was fuel there, heat there, and something that can blow up. Okay, why? Because somebody designed it with fuel and heat and something that can explode. Why? Because they were told to, or because they're stupid, or whatever. So once you dig 5 whys deep, the story behind the story behind the story, you kind of try to get to the root cause of anything. You can use that 5 whys in any topic: relationships, technical, sales, marketing, whatever. 5 whys. Go deep. Power and energy. Do you want power or energy? The mystery of energy. We say we have energy, but does it mean anything without power? Okay, for those of you laypersons, you ever heard of Einstein's equation, E equals mc squared? Oh my God, there's so much power and so much energy and everything because of this equation. But the question is it usable energy? Can you fucking use it? And the answer is probably not. You can't use all that energy. So is energy really a real thing? I mean, you calculate the amount of energy in this device or object that could possibly relate to E equals mc squared. Can I possibly access that power to make it work? No, you can't. Mostly that applies to nuclear material. Mostly nuclear material. So energy is a very obscure term. Usually people mean power when they say energy. And power is the rate at which work is done, and work is essentially defined as useful energy. So if I move this guy from here to here, I've done work, which I've expended energy. But if I push really hard and haven't done anything, I'm still expending energy, but technically it's not work. But then again, work is some sort of definitional thing, specialized type of energy, kind of like useful energy. But then again, the definitions are weird. But anyway, for the most part, work equals energy. For the most part, but it's useful energy. So when your utility company charges you for kilowatt hours on your bill, you'll notice sometimes they don't charge you X amount of kilowatt hours, X amount of dollars for kilowatt hours, and sometimes they'll charge you more when you say weekends or late in the day. And basically what that means is they're charging you for power, max power usage. So the equations of electricity and electromagnetism mean that the higher the current that's used in electricity, the more there's heat loss, and therefore it's inefficient. So they might charge you more the more current you pull off the transformers or whatever. So are you paying for energy or power? Well, in the case of your utility, depending on how they bill you, probably both. They bill major power consumers like industrial operations, usually on peak power. So are they paying for energy or power? What the hell is energy and power? So that is an obscure subject that most people, even if they are extremely well educated in physics, haven't thought clearly about. I have actually thought very well about this subject because one of the things that is my expertise is energy storage and battery systems. So it is a very fuzzy topic, and essentially you got to go back to the equations whenever you're talking about it technically, because most people can't pay attention to energy and power without referring to the equation. It's a very slippery subject. It's very difficult to understand. Even intuitively, it's just a very obscure, hard to grasp topic, power and energy. Meditation, getting into your subconscious mind. So non-meditators operate on the assumption that they know all their thoughts and that you have ready access. So if you don't meditate, you probably say, yeah, I know my thoughts. I know what I'm thinking right now. Us who do meditate say, I bet you don't. Meditators know that these people are not connected to their subconscious, that there are multiple layers to the motivations, completely separate from conscious thoughts. So that's probably the main benefit of meditation that you can tell a person who perhaps has not meditated. You can say, hey, you have goals, desires, and needs that is not in your conscious mind. You do the meditation practice, you'll bring those up and bubble them up into the conscious mind. And you'll have better, not control, but better knowledge of your motivations and desires and wants. So yeah, meditation connects the conscious mind to the subconscious mind to where you know a little bit better what your subconscious processes are. And they'll be less likely to blindside you whenever you meditate. So if you're a conscious and you don't meditate, your subconscious will tend to blindside you occasionally and just explode, freak you out and stuff if you don't meditate. The next topic, body language, the key to the unconscious. So we all know that body language is an expression of our internal state, typically, unless there's some sort of a medical condition, which essentially is another internal state and expression, medical condition. Body language. So body language, you can kind of say, oh, I'm programming my body through my thoughts, more or less. I'm thinking good thoughts, so my body language is good. I'm thinking relaxing thoughts, so I'm relaxed in my body. However, the cause and effect relationship goes two ways with body language. You can use your mind to produce body language, but you can also use body language to produce mental states. So if you notice, if your body starts getting closed off like this, get your thoughts together. Say, oh, I'm closing off, and open up to be more receptive if you want to be receptive to, say, people in front of you. Or if you want to close them off, you want to get rid of somebody, you start doing this, you start closing up. And then they'll unconsciously get the message to back off or leave. So you can program your unconscious mind with body language, and you can program your body language with your mind. So the feedback loop goes both ways. Most people don't know this. But body language is one of the most important things you need to study if you want to learn how to read people. And trust me, body language is, you can rely on body language 10 times more than you rely on what somebody tells you they're thinking. So for example, if they tell you they're happy with you and their body language is unhappy, don't believe them. Always believe the body language before you believe what they're saying with their mind, because that means their conscious mind and their subconscious is separated, and the mouth is saying something from the conscious mind and the body saying something else that's real. So always believe the body language before you believe what they tell you. Logic, the next riff topic. Logic does not convince anyone. There is a prejudice that, oh, you convince somebody logically and therefore they will come to the same conclusion as you as long as it's logical. That's bullshit. Not true. You got to dig into what moves the body. Hormones, endorphins, etc. Chemicals, spiritual states, motivations, unconscious urges, wants, pleasure, pain, whatever. That's what convinces people. Logic is a method that people use to retro-justify. What that means is they make a decision with their subconscious and they use logic as a tool to justify after they make the unconscious decision. So if somebody wants to kill somebody and they do it, subconscious mind causes them to kill somebody, they'll retro-justify it. I killed him because he did A, B, and C, when this act is bullshit. It was a decision made right here in the subconscious mind. So logic will always be used to retro-justify. However, logic does not convince anyone. Now, if somebody's already convinced, you use logic not to convince them. You use logic to give them a tool to justify themselves to others and themselves. Right? Get it? Remember, you cannot convince anyone with logic, ever. It's going to be hard to get into many people's heads. You cannot convince anyone using logic. They're going to get convinced in the subconscious. You give them logic as a tool to justify their already made decisions. Remember that. That's the most important thing you can learn if you're into persuasion, sales, or whatever, convincing people, leading people. Decision analysis. The next riff topic is decision analysis. People do not use writing to flesh out their thoughts. People who do not use writing to flesh out their thoughts, they will be surprised at how arbitrary their decision processes are when they actually flesh out the cause and effect relations and the weighted relative importance of priorities stacked against each other in plain sight on a whiteboard or on paper. In other words, you write down your decision-making process on paper to get through a decision you got to make. You'll be surprised at how rigorous that is compared to what you did, say, 5 minutes previously, and you made the same decision without writing it down. It's like once you pull stuff out of your head, stick it on paper, and you flesh it out, you'll be extremely surprised at how arbitrary your own decision processes are on a whiteboard or on paper. Again, relative importance of priorities. What's important? Safety or logic or safety? That relative importance is extremely important. And if it's only floating on the surface of your decision processes and not written on paper on a board, it's hard to feel through what's important whenever you're making a decision. If you don't flesh it out on paper or on a whiteboard, you'll be very surprised. I'm an expert on decision analysis, so I have seen it everywhere. Riff topic number 7. Actually, it's not number 7. It's just another riff topic. Cause and effect. So if you say, I pulled the trigger and the gun fired, so I pulled the trigger, that caused the gun to fire. Okay? Cause and effect. However, that is only a story. Remember, the core of science, cause and effect, this causes that. This equation shows how that relationship is. Remember, you can boil everything down to a story. This might shock scientists. It might shock those of you who are logical guys, but using words, you're only telling a story. What is the simplest story in the world? The simplest scientific principle, if you say, or simplest engineering principle. A caused B. Simple story. A caused B. I threw a brick that caused the window to shatter. This is one example. I flipped the switch, the light went on. I flipped the switch, then the light went on. Cause and effect. That's the simplest type of story, but it's just a story. That's the shocking thing about cause and effect. It's the simplest version of a story. And every story in the world is based on A causes B, cause and effect. Conflict. What are the elements of a short story or the simplest stories? Conflict, setting, characters, whatever. Conflict. What causes the conflict? How do you resolve the conflict? A causes B. That's a more complicated story, right? But essentially, it's A causes B. It's the simplest story in the world. So you can boil anything down to A causes B, and when you get to the root of all science, the root of all argument, the root of all logic is a story that you tell others and yourself. And ultimately, it could be bullshit. A caused B. It's a story. Very shocking once you dig into it. And that is the end of my riff topic here, guys. So, like I said, I'm constant training. And these are my riff topics for my course I'm taking from Tony Robbins and Dan Graziosi. So I will just post this as something you might be interested in. Take care, guys. Nice meeting you guys. Like to see your comments down there. You're always welcome to comment, unless you're extremely stupid. But most of you guys are pretty smart, pretty cool guys. So until next time, be safe. Take care. Goodbye.